now. Hello, we are Cambridge Ruskin International College at Anglia Ruskin University. We are an associate college based on the Anglia Ruskin campus, and we offer pathways in a variety of different courses leading to degrees and master courses at Anglia Ruskin University. So today it is our great pleasure to welcome our very own Paul Patterson, who is a lecturer both at Crick and at Anglia Ruskin in English language and writing. Today he's going to be talking to us about how to prepare for the IELTS course and how to perform well in the English language proficiency test. So let's get started.
Okay, so you swap seats now. Thank you. Hello everybody. My name's Paul, okay? Can we just tip that up a little bit there so people can see me? Now, you're going to operate the PowerPoint, aren't you? Okay. Right, okay, so I'm going to talk today about how to prepare for the IELTS exam and how to pass the English language proficiency test. Okay. So we have a little PowerPoint going here at the same time. I'm going to read from it and explain things as I go along. Okay. Right, so can we move down a slide, please? Thank you. All right, so before coming to Cambridge, it'd be a good idea to click onto the link that I've included below there, okay, on the IELTS website. That shows you how to prepare for the course before coming to Cambridge, and it will also show you how to prepare for the test. Also, we've got another link there. That link's from the Anglia Ruskin University website, and if you click that link, you should get the support that you need for the English language proficiency test. You can even book a test as well at Anglia Ruskin on that website. Okay, now this diagram here has got a lot of words on it, a lot of text. It's probably quite difficult for you to understand, but it highlights the main structure of the two courses that are available to you. You can do the IELTS academic course, which will prepare you to study an undergraduate degree at university. Conversely, on the right-hand side, the general training is a different kind of course. It's more practical and it's not geared towards studying in a university. Right, let's start with the listening test. The listening test can be difficult because there may be words in the test that you don't understand, and some of the accents might be quite difficult. There's lots of different accents over here in the UK. So you'll be listening for a purpose to a number of accents, and they could be British, Australian, North American, or Kiwi accents, all kinds of different accents that English is spoken in. The test will happen on a pre-recorded CD-ROM, and the passages will become much harder as the test progresses. Now, the purpose of the test is to assess you through listening, the things they'll be interested in, how well you can understand main ideas and specific factual information, and how well you can recognise the opinions, the attitudes and the purpose of a speaker, and whether you can follow the development of an argument. The listening test takes approximately 30 minutes, and you'll be allowed an extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers from your question booklet to the answer sheet during the exam. And okay, it's got 4 sections, the listening test. The first thing you'll do is listen to a conversation between two people set in an everyday situation. For example, it could be a conversation in an accommodation agency. Secondly, you'll listen to a monologue set in an everyday social situation. By monologue, we mean someone talking basically on their own. Okay, so an example is you might be asked to listen to the arrangements made for meals during a conference. Thirdly, you'll be asked to listen to a conversation between up to 4 people set in an educational or training context. And this one's a little bit more difficult because you've got 4 people involved in the conversation. An example of what you might be asked to do there is listen to a university tutor and a student or group of students discussing an assignment. And then finally you'll listen to another monologue, but this time on an academic subject. So it could be something like a university lecture. Okay, now some tactics, some ideas or some strategies to get you through this. What will they ask you to do? They'll ask you to read the questions first for section 1, listen to section 1, and then answer the questions. Now that procedure will then be repeated for sections 2, 3 and 4. And in the final 10 minutes, you will transfer your answers onto the answer sheet. Now each section is heard only once, so it's really important to tune in and focus. Right, there'll be 40 questions, quite a lot of questions and quite a few different types of questions. There'll be multiple choice questions. You'll be asked to label a map, maybe, or a plan or a diagram, or fill in a form or complete a table or complete a flow chart. Maybe give some short answers. Now after that, can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you, Geeson. Alright, so tips for the test. Quite a few tips here. Okay. The most important thing to do is tell the invigilator if you can't hear the audio. You must do that if in any way it's compromising your ability to do well in the test. Follow the instructions carefully. They may be different to previous tests that you've done, so always focus on the instructions. Listen for the specific information you want. So that's about being a critical listener, focusing exactly on what it is that you've been asked to record. Also try to anticipate what the speaker will say, and this will require a lot of concentration. So concentration is very important all the way through. Alright, some more tips. These are more personal tips, how to handle yourself personally during the exam. Rule number 1 is don't panic under any circumstances. But if there's a word that you don't understand, don't panic because you may not need it. Okay? Secondly, if you don't know the answer to a question, attempt it, but don't waste any time. Move quickly on to the next one. And always be careful with your spelling and your grammar so that people can understand what it is that you're trying to, the information that you're trying to transfer in your answer. Once again, don't panic if you think the topic is too hard or those thoughts start crowding in upon you that it's all too difficult or if the speaker's going too fast. Just try to relax and tune in to what's being said. Okay, and if you can multitask, it will really help your your performance there. So try to read, write, and listen at the same time, and focus precisely on what you're asked to do in completion type questions. And some final tips for listening before we move on. Pay attention to the word limit. For example, if you're asked to complete a sentence using 2 words, then do just that. If the correct answer is leather coat, the answer coat made of leather would be incorrect. Okay? If the question asks you to complete the phrase in the, and the correct answer is morning, note that in the morning would be incorrect. The correct answer is morning. Attempt all questions because there are no penalties for incorrect answers, and check your answers as you go along and afterwards if you have time. Right, so let's move on to the reading test now. Okay, some basic things to think about in terms of understanding the reading test. You'll need to read quickly and efficiently and manage your time. You'll be asked to read 3 different passages and respond to questions. Now, I'm making the assumption here that you will want to do the reading test for the academic IELTS rather than the general training test if you've already got plans to come to Cambridge Ruskin International College. So what's the purpose of the test? What are they interested in? They're interested in seeing whether you can read for the general sense, the general meaning of a passage. Can you read for the main ideas and can you read for the detail? Can you understand inferences and implied meaning? Can you recognise the writer's opinions, attitudes and purpose? And can you follow the development of an argument? Timing. The reading test goes for 60 minutes. It's quite a long time, but there's no time to transfer your answers in the reading test. So just write them directly onto your answer sheet. And you'll need to manage your time carefully during the reading test because you'll not be told when to start and finish each section. Okay. So there's 3 sections to the reading test, okay? And most of the texts, the possible texts, are non-fiction texts. They're taken from notices, advertisements, company handbooks, official documents, books, magazines and newspapers. Now what will be in section 1. You'll have just 2 or 3 short factual texts such as hotel advertisements which relate to everyday life in an English-speaking country. Section 2 will contain 2 short factual texts focusing on work-related issues. For example, applying for a job, company policies, pay and conditions, or workplace facilities. Section 3 will have a longer, more complex text on a topic of general interest. How many questions are there in the test? There's 40 questions. There's a lot of questions. Okay, the sorts of things that you might be asked to do are fill gaps in a passage or written text or in a table. You might be asked to match headings to written text with diagrams and charts. You might be asked to complete or finish off sentences, give short answers to open questions, answer multiple choice questions. Sometimes you might need to give one word as your answer, sometimes a short phrase, and sometimes simply a letter, a number, or a symbol. Of course, make sure you read the instructions very carefully. Okay, top tips for the reading test. Look out for the title, headings, or special features like capital letters, underlining, italics, figures, graphs, tables. Make sure that you understand the questions and follow the instructions carefully. Pay attention to timing. Do not spend too long on one passage or question, and do not read every word. Remember, you're reading for a purpose, so skimming and scanning is really important. If you do not know the answer to the question, attempt it, but don't waste time. Move quickly on to the next one. More tips. Okay, don't panic if you don't know anything about the subject of the text. All the answers are in the text. You can find all the answers in there. The words you use must be taken from the reading text. Don't change the form of the words in the text. You are encouraged to quote or write down quoted sections of the text in your answers. Don't worry, once again, we've been through this one before. If there's a word you don't understand, don't panic. You may not need to use it. And also check your spelling. Be careful to use the singular and the plural correctly and focus precisely on what you are asked to do in completion type questions. Right, let's go on to the writing test. Now, what are the examiners interested in you demonstrating in the writing test? They want to know whether you can write clearly, whether you can write English that can be understood. They want to know whether you can organise your ideas in a piece of writing. They want to know if you've got a broad and varied vocabulary. The purpose of the test is to assess how well you can write a response, how well you can organise your ideas, and whether you can use a range of vocabulary and grammar accurately. Okay. Once again, the writing test takes 60 minutes. You should spend, this is very important, this bit, you should spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. You will need to manage your own time, so make sure you move on to task 2 after 20 minutes. There's 2 tasks, okay? In the first one, you'll be asked to write at least 150 words. In the second one, you'll be asked to write at least 250 words. Okay. Once again, what about the format or the style of the test? In task 1, you'll be presented with a graph, a table, a chart, maybe a diagram, and you'll describe, summarise or explain the information in your own words. In task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, an argument or a problem. Right, let's turn to top tips now for the writing test. Okay, analyse each task properly and make notes before you start. Underline, highlight key words in the task. There should be certain words in the task which are buzzwords that should jump off the page and say to you, these are the words, these are the things that I need to do in that piece of writing. Plan your answers, use paragraphs clearly, one idea in each paragraph. Try not to repeat ideas using different words. Okay. Do not copy whole sentences from the question. You will receive no marks for this. It's important to write your own thoughts down. A few more tips. Okay, I'm repeating the important stuff here. Keep to the topic. Manage your time. Spend approximately 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. Once again, pay attention to the number of words required for each task: 150 words for task 1, 250 words for task 2. Another little trick is to learn to recognise how long 150 words, how long 250 words looks in your handwriting. You won't have time to count during the test. Don't waste time counting words during the test. And finally, write your answers in full sentences. Don't write down phrases, words, okay? Write in full sentences, sentences that make complete sense on their own. Writing in note form or bullet points will lose you marks. Spelling, grammar and punctuation really matter, so be conscious of your use of grammar and punctuation. Avoid informal language. In an academic context, you want to use formal language, so make sure that you are as formal as you possibly can be. Don't memorise model answers. The examiners will recognise them and your test will be deemed invalid. And spend several minutes rereading, correcting your answers at the end. Right, now we come to the speaking test, which is, I know that's the one that a lot of you feel more anxious about. So let's have a bit of a talk about what you need to do well in the speaking test. It's as close to a real life situation as an exam can get. You will be talking to a certified examiner in the IELTS test, the speaking test. It's interactive and it's close to a real life situation as a test can get. A variety of different accents may be used and the test will be recorded. So nothing to worry about really. Okay, let's look at the purpose of this text. What do they want to know? What does the examiner want to know what you can do? They want to know whether you can communicate your opinions and information on everyday topics and common experiences. So to do this, you'll need to answer questions. They'll want to know whether you can speak at length on a given topic using the appropriate kind of language, whether you can organise your ideas coherently, whether you can express and justify your opinions, whether you can analyse, discuss and speculate about issues. So make sure all the way through that you relax and talk fluently. You'll need to speak as naturally as you possibly can. Timing is very important for this test, as indeed it is for all of the other sections as well. It takes 11 to 14 minutes. It's made up of 3 sections. Part 1 is called the introduction and the interview, and it goes for about 4 to 5 minutes. The examiner will introduce him or herself and ask you to introduce yourself and confirm your identity, your name that is. They might ask you some general questions on familiar topics. They might ask about your home country. They might ask about your family, your work, your studies, and any particular interests that you have. The section is designed to help you relax and talk naturally. And remember, the examiners want you to pass. Right, part 2 is the individual long term, which goes for about 3 to 4 minutes. The examiner will give you a task card which asks you to talk about a particular topic, including points to include in your talk. So you'll be given 1 minute to prepare and make notes. You will then be asked to talk for 1 to 2 minutes on the topic. You'll not be interrupted during this time, so it's important to keep talking all the way through. The examiner will then ask you 1 or 2 questions on the same topic. Then there's part 3, which goes the two-way discussion, which goes for 4 to 5 minutes. The examiner will will ask you further questions which are connected to the topic of part 2. And these questions are designed to give you the opportunity to discuss more abstract ideas and issues. You will be marked on the following 4 criteria: fluency and coherence. Do you make sense? Do you talk fluently? Lexical resource is just a fancy phrase which means, do you know a lot of words and do you know how to use them correctly? Also, another main criteria will be grammatical range and accuracy and pronunciation as well. So try to pronounce your words as accurately as you can. Right, top tips for speaking. Talk as much as you can. Talk as fluently as possible and be spontaneous. Relax, be confident and enjoy using your English. Try to enjoy the conversation as much as you can. Develop your answers. speak more than the examiner. If you're speaking more than the examiner, that's a pretty good sign. And ask questions, ask for clarification if necessary. Always better to ask for clarification than to say, I don't know. And finally, 3 more last tips to help you with this particular phase of the test. Do not learn prepared answers. The examiner is trained to spot this and will change the question. Just listen to what the examiner is saying and try to engage with them as naturally as you possibly can. Express your opinion, say what you think, say how you feel about certain issues. You'll be asked to, because you're going to be assessed on your ability to communicate more complex ideas as well. So the examiner's questions tend to be fairly predictable. You should be able to practice answering them at home and recording yourself. All of this stuff that I've just spoken about, all the strategies that I've spoken about, you can find on the links that I've given you at the beginning of the PowerPoint, which will be made available to you after the presentation. Gizem, we're going to do questions now. Thank you very much for listening to me. Are we going to do some questions now?
Yes, we have some questions and maybe we can answer some of them.
Okay, all right. How to speak with native speakers for practice online. I think the best thing you can do, okay, when you get here is to get out and be as sociable as you possibly can. Speaking to people who are native English speakers is the best way to improve your conversational skills. So get yourself involved in clubs, get yourself involved in societies or something like that, and just talk to as many native English speakers, as many local people as you possibly can. Right, okay. What does the examiner want to see during the speaking part? I mean, the examiner will have their own criteria about, you know, what you need to do to get through to pass the test. But I really think they want to know whether you can hold a decent conversation with someone, whether you can speak, whether you can listen, and use those skills to help you interact naturally with native English speakers. Okay, the best strategy for the writing task is always to think very, very carefully about what it is that the task is asking you to do. So look at the task, highlight the key words in the task, circle them, underline them, highlight them, so that you know what it's asking. If it's asking you to explain, then you should explain. If it's asking you to inform, then that's what you should do. Think about your writing as well as you commit your thoughts to paper, and bear in mind the fact that there is a process in between thinking and writing called sentencing. So you need to process your thoughts and basically sentence, punctuate in your mind before you commit them to paper, so that you're actually thinking about, so that you're actually writing down what it is that you want to write down. Okay.
Maybe the final question.
And the final question, thank you, Gizem. How can I improve my English in a short period of time? Well, it's really about immersing yourself as much as you can in the English language. Start reading novels, start speaking to people, and write as much as you can. It's often not a bad idea to keep a journal or a diary so that you can practice all of those skills. So reading, writing, speaking and listening in as many ways as you possibly can whilst you're over here. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
We're done. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gizem.
Thank you.